afternoon and welcome to the 158th edition of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. We've got a lot to cover today. It was a crazy week 8, some huge upsets, including the ones that we're going to be talking about with our guests. But it's going to be Denver Pate, head coach of Sonoraville, and then I'm going to try to get this last name right, Pete Fominaya, Hiram's head coach. And then Najeh's going to come on in the third segment. We'll talk about some of the big results this week and what's ahead. We're going to be at the Cambridge versus Kell game this Friday. It'll be really interesting. Cambridge had a big win over Centennial this week. They had a lot of players returning from last year's team that had that school record 9-win campaign. And then Kell looks really good with Bobby May. They're undefeated, and they picked up a big win as well. So that'll be an exciting top 10 matchup in 5A. But we're going to go ahead and welcome on Sonoraville's Denver Pate. Coach Pate, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, you bet. Well, I've been looking at your schedule, and Central-Carrollton has been a really good team this year, and it looks like you guys had just an incredible battle on Friday, a double overtime region win, 35-34. You moved to 2-0 in the region. So just talk about what that was like, just getting that tough road win.
Yes, sir. It's always good to get a region win. We kind of put ourselves behind the 8 ball with some turnovers early on in the football game, but our kids, they kept battling and fighting throughout the football game. Was able to chip and claw back in the game and take it to overtime. And, we had a big blocked extra point in the double overtime to seal the victory.
Yep. So you guys scored. Did you score first and then you had the block?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We scored first in the double overtime, and then they were able to score. And then we had a block by Zach McAfee to end the contest.
Yeah, he had a big game. So he had the blocked, game-clinching PAT. Also, it looks like 2 fumble recoveries in that game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He had a big night. 13 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, and then to put the icing on the cake with the block at the end.
Very nice. And then your kicker looks like he handled business. Your sophomore Mateo, is it Trio?
Yes, sir. Trio. He's a soccer kid. This is the first year he's been out, so I don't even know if the kid knows how big the kicks were, but he just went out there and was able to kick them through the upright. So, it's big on his part as well.
Yeah, that is a good sign. Anytime your kicker's able to handle the overtime pressure in a tight region game like that on the road. So I was looking who else had a really big game. It looks like Zach Lyles. He had, I think, 15 carries, 100 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then a big punt return or maybe a kick return.
Yes, sir. Zach's a baseball kid. He's been committed to Western Kentucky for probably about 2 years now, but he's a tough football player. He is he's just a competitor. He had 100 yards on the ground, and then he had some big receptions. We were able to convert 3 or 4 fourth down and long plays, and he was able to pull in 2 touchdowns. Late in the football game and then in overtime. So he was able to get in the end zone 3 times. Jackson, our quarterback, started off slow. We put the ball on the ground too many times, but he was able to keep battling. He's just a competitor as well. 3 touchdowns in the air, scoring a couple late in the contest in the fourth quarter, and then 1 in overtime. And then on defense, Dawson Young, he had 16 tackles, 2 sacks, and he was able to force 1 of those fumbles. So just a big night for some of our guys overall. Ridge Red with a big fourth down reception. It was a good night, especially when it's a region win.
Absolutely. Ridge Red, he seems to be a big mismatch too. I think 6'4", 235.
He is. He does a really good job. One thing that's probably undervalued is just how how well he is in the run game. And at the next level, he's going to have to be able to put his hand down and block. And he does a really good job at this level for us. And then, like you said, when we can get him out in space, and he's tough to deal with. Just the size and his frame. Really does a really good job. Had a few receptions. Had one long reception on a fourth down play the other night. So again, just a kid that a fighter for us.
Yep, and you were the OC at Sonoraville before you took over as head coach. You were talking about how Jackson Pate might have started slow in that game, but he certainly looks like he finished well. 14 of 18, I think 257 or 37 yards to go with the 3 touchdowns. So how has this offense just come together this season, just in terms of the system, the guys you have, and just how Jackson's able to just move the chains through the air and with his ability to run?
Yes, it's always good when you get your quarterback back, and he started for us last year as a sophomore. Thought we had a really good sophomore year, and then bringing back a lot of the weapons from last year. With Ridge coming back, and Zach, and then Brant, and then one guy, Keegan Townsend. He had a long touchdown reception the other night of 74 yards. Just probably an underappreciated kid. He'll block his tail off. Undersized. Just having all those guys back really makes things easy for you. For Jackson, knowing where guys are going to be, just because of the consistency they've been able to develop, over the last year and a half. So it's always good to have guys returning, especially when it's your quarterback.
Yeah, and Keegan Townsend has certainly been kind of a home run hitter for you guys. Against Northwest Whitfield, he had a big, I think, a 49-yard catch. He had the one catch, 74 yards for a touchdown this last game. He had a big game against Lafayette, 2 catches, 100 yards and a touchdown. So has that been something that's stood out this year, just these big plays you guys are able to generate?
Yes, sir. I think anytime you can develop a run game and sustain some drives in that aspect, and then you're able to get those safeties to bite up a little bit and be able to hit some guys over the top, and that's where Keegan comes into play. He's a track guy. He's not the biggest kid in the world, but he's quick and he's got a little bit of speed with him. He does a good job of getting behind defenders and getting lost, and Jackson's been able to find him several times this year. And as far as, like you said, the home run threats, we like to be able to run the football and then take our shots accordingly. And we've had pretty good success throughout this season in doing so.
Yeah, but in your schedule, it's kind of been the who-who's of all these North Georgia teams. You guys are pretty much playing everyone. You opened against Pickens, got a nice 27-16 win. Looks like, yeah, that was a game Townsend had a big performance, 4 catches. Pate was good. And then you guys had Darlington next. What did you guys just learn from that matchup? Defensively, you guys fall 45-22 just in that department.
I thought overall we learned that you can't turn the football over against really good teams and expect to win football games. There's been 2 games this year that we've really lost the turnover battle, and it's really cost us. And playing this tough non-region schedule, we wanted to do so to get us ready for this region. We knew that the Cedartowns and the Centrals and the Heritage and Northwest and Southeast, we knew there was going to be tough competition in this region. So playing a tough non-region schedule, we thought would be beneficial once we got into the region. But in that Darlington game, we knew Coach Atha and his guys were going to be well coached, a very disciplined football team, and we knew that we couldn't lose the turnover battle, and we did so. And we just some things fundamental as well. Some missed tackles, missed assignments. It ended up costing us. And, you know, we had to go back and make sure we were fundamentally sound in some aspects and schematically that we had our guys in the right position to make plays.
Yep, and in both losses, you guys have bounced back with big victories after it. You guys followed the Darlington loss, a 27-21 win over Dalton. Zach Lyles looked phenomenal in that one. And then also a guy that has been, I guess, playing a lot of different roles is Brant Bryant.
Yes, sir. He plays on just about all of our special teams. He's our safety, and he's a he plays the slot for us. Just a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife type kid. Can do it all. He's just again another fierce competitor for us. But to be able to bounce back after a tough loss to Darlington, you got to turn around and play. Um, the Lafayette's. Um, you know, and again, it's kind of a trap game for us because we have Calhoun coming in after that, but was able to sustain some drives and utilize some of our players to be able to pull out a victory against those guys.
Yep, so you beat Lafayette, as you said, 28-17. Looks like Tristan Mullins has just been a tackling machine for you guys. 5'11", 200 pounds.
Oh yes, sir. He's a strong kid in the weight room as well. Um, you know, he's got 93 tackles on the season. He is he's as good as I've seen in a long time, especially from where I've coached. Does a really good job on his fits, and he doesn't miss many tackles. And when he comes, he brings the thump too. So just a tough, hard nosed kid. He's more of an old school type linebacker. I mean, he loves contact, and again, he week in and week out, you can count on him. 12 to 16 tackles um, every week. So he's been definitely the anchor of our defense.
Yeah, that that's what, like 13, 14 tackles a game. That is very impressive. 93 tackles. And then, yeah, let's just talk about that final game before the region against Calhoun. It looks like it was pretty close in the first half. They eventually outscore you 20-0 in the second half. But just you mentioned the turnovers. What else in that game kind of slowed you guys down?
Yeah. Again, a lot of it was turnovers in that game as well. Just um, so we talk a lot about that to our guys and winning the turnover battle. And you want to be able to play the Calhouns that are traditional powers in Northwest Georgia, and not necessarily for a measuring stick, but for our kids to be able to play on a big stage and put them out there before these region games get started. So for us, we wanted to play them, for the big stage to get ready for the Cedar Towns and the Centrals and the Northwest and the Heritage. Um, but also, we wanted to be able to face a good quarterback, a good running back, because we're going to see those. We saw that with a guy at Central that's got a Georgia offer and a Tech offer, and then the quarterback, the Townsend kid from Calhoun, um, is a really good player. But we knew the Booker kid at Northwest and the kid at Heritage. We're going to be really good players as well. So we try to use those non-region games to prepare us for a tough region schedule.
Absolutely. And Region 7, we've been mentioning how none of the teams have losing records. You currently got the number one team in 4A with Cedartown. That's who you guys are going to be playing next. And you actually used to coach there, is that right?
Yes, sir. I spent 3 years there.
All right. So, I mean, what have you seen with this year's Cedartown team? Obviously, they run the ball extremely well, but it also looks like they're able to just kind of add the passing aspect into that offense and just be really dangerous offensively. And I was surprised with how dominant they looked against Heritage last Friday.
Hey, Coach Abrams and his staff do a really good job with those guys over there at Cedartown. They're very athletic. Um, they do run the football a lot and kind of, I would say, lull you to sleep, but they'll run it so many times that you're focused on the run, and then they'll be able to hit one over the top with you with the Tanner kid. So, number 2 and number 10 for them in the backfield are really, really good players. Number 2 being the fullback and the defensive lineman. He's a really good player, tough, physical player. From just watching them on film, they play angry. They play angry. Um, so, we got to make sure we match their physicality. If you can't match their physicality, it's going to be a long night for you. In a perfect world, you would like to get them, playing behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and be able to see if they can beat you throwing the football. So they're number 1 for a reason in this in class 4A. So they're going to be a tough task for anyone.
Yep, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly where I was going to go is the physicality. I mean, that's going to be such a key for you guys. You're going to have the bye week before this big matchup, but, I mean, what an opportunity for you guys to face off with the top team in the classification, and also you guys are both undefeated in the region. So, I mean, how big is this game for you guys?
Like we talk to the kids all the time, you want to be able to play in meaningful games. The meaningless games, they're not fun. To try to get kids up for a game that really doesn't matter is tough for any coach. So to put yourself in a position where both teams are sitting 2-0 in the region, fighting for that 1 seed, it makes it a lot easier to get these guys up for this big region game. And again, we know that Cedartown is going to be a tough task. We understand that. We're prepared to be the best Sonoraville team that we can be, and not beat ourselves. Make Cedartown beat us. Don't give them, like I said earlier, win the turnover battle would be key, but make them earn it. Um, and then at the end of the game, if they come out on top, they come out on top. They're just a better team. But making them earn a victory, giving it to them, will be one of the keys to this football game.
Absolutely, and just playing well on first and second down defensively, not allowing them to get those third and shorts, second and shorts. That's going to be an incredible game, though. And Coach Pate, we really thank you for coming on, though. We're going to jump now, though, to the next guest, but we will be watching that one and watching the Phoenix this year.
Appreciate you. Go Phoenix.
Yep, you bet. So that was very interesting. I mentioned defensively, Dawson Young, tackling machine, 16 tackles in this latest win. Uh, Tristan Mullins, he's the physical presence on that defense. So what a matchup that's going to be with kind of that nucleus defensively against a Cedartown team that, as he said, plays angry. So we're going to ahead and take a quick break. Thank our sponsors, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So our next guest, I'm very excited for this one. It's going to be Hiram head coach Pete Fominaya, and they are coming off that massive win over Calhoun, 44-34. So he was saying after the game, I mean, he's probably been interviewed dozens of times just after that result, but he was saying as long as we stay in it and are close at the half, we feel like we have a chance to win. And so they go down 14-0 early. They're able to put 10 on the board before the half, and so they go in 14-10, and then they never punted in the second half and really just closed it out and ran away with it. True stunner and a great victory for Hiram to bounce back from a Dalton loss in their opener in the region. And so they have 3 games left, Cartersivlle, Cass, and Woodland. And so it's going to be a log jam in this Region 7, but we're going to go ahead and get Coach on. Do we have him? Coach, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Awesome. And help me out with the pronunciation. Is it Fominaya?
Correct. You got it right.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
never happens. So it looks you were at Florida before you came to this Hiram program, Gulf Coast and Lehigh.
Yep. Yes, sir. So I'm originally from the Naples, Fort Myers area. Um, I was an assistant coach at Naples High School, and we had a lot of success there, and we won a state championship in '07. And then I was fortunate enough to get my first head coaching job at 27 at a place called Lehigh, which is in Fort Myers. I was there for 3 years, and then I went back to Naples and took over my alma mater. I was there for 6 years. They didn't have a lot of success there before we got there, and by the end we won a district championship, which is equivalent to a region championship. And the opportunity came to come up to Georgia, and I was really excited about the opportunity, and here we are now in year 5.
And what has just been the key to getting a program kind of moving forward? Is it just hard work? Is that kind of just what the mantra is for you?
Well, our second year we really felt like we had turned the corner. We got into the playoffs as a 4 seed in a really tough region with Rome and Carrollton and Kell, and we got in, and we go out and beat Southwest DeKalb, who was a 1 seed, and we made it to the second round against Griffin, and we played in a really close game against them, and I really thought that the program had gotten to where I wanted it to be, and we were getting ready to take the next steps. Well, that offseason, the pandemic hit, and I think every community was affected differently by it. For us, it really hit hard. We're a bit of a transient community, and people were deciding if they wanted to go to school or not, and be in person or play football or any of those things. And the last 2 years have been hard on our program. So as a staff, we really just started focusing on the young kids. Really tried to develop the program from within, and really spend as much time as we could into the weight room. And that's starting to pay off for us. We're still a pretty young, and we're starting to get some results that we were expecting. And it's a good week to be a Hornet.
Yeah, that's huge. And I saw somewhere that you only have 4 seniors starting, so 18 underclassmen
Yep.
starting. I guess that's what you were talking about. Kind of the pandemic year maybe hurt the numbers of the program, but the young guys are sticking it out. And it looks like, they're just really taking pride in this season, growing, and having the results.
Yeah, we knew this could be a special year for us, but we knew that our best football was ahead of us. When you've got a small senior class, you usually tie success as a program into having large senior classes. We knew we just didn't have that this year. But we knew our young kids were so talented that they could carry us, that our seniors could be the leaders, and our young guys could be kind of the engine that kept it going. And those kids have really stepped up. Our seniors that are now starters are playing roles. They're on special teams. They're great in practice, and they do a good job for us when it comes to team morale and leadership and things like that. But, our young kids are really talented, and, we've got a really good group going forward the next few years.
Yep, one of the seniors is your quarterback, Samir Wiley. But then in the backfield, Caden
Yep.
Hamilton and Jamarian Watley have just been outstanding as a 1-2 punch this year.
Yep, they have. Samir actually moved here from Kenya. His family relocated this summer. And I remember when he showed up, we were looking for a quarterback, and he walked in the room, and he's a tall kid. And I said, well, son, what do you play? He's like, well, I'm a quarterback. And I said, well, that's great, man. So he stepped in and has really taken ownership of it. The big thing for us, I think he's got 13 or 14 touchdowns, and he's only got 3 interceptions. He's done a really good job of taking care of the football, and he's really, really sharp kid. When a kid moves to Georgia from out of state, there's usually a huge learning curve. The football that we play in the South, and specifically here in Georgia, is a higher level. It's a graduate program really when you come into high school football in Georgia. But he's been super coachable, and he's been a great leader with the kids. And I can't be more proud of him. And then that 2-headed monster of ours in the backfield has just been incredible for us. Jamarian Watley, we call him Bird. is one of the best running backs I've ever been around. I coached Carlos Hyde in Florida, who played for Ohio State, and he was in the NFL for 10 years. And you know, I'm not saying that Jamarian Watley is Carlos Hyde, but what I am saying is that he's a special football player who's got top-end speed. And if he gets past the first level, there's not a lot of people that are going to catch him. And then Caden Hamilton's a 10th grader. He's not very big. He's 5'6". He's 160 pounds, but he is one of the savviest and most unselfish football players I've ever been around. Not only is he great running the football, catching the football, he'll play safety for us as well. And he's a great blocker, you know, which you don't find a lot of young kids that want to block and do things the right way. And, you know, he excels at all those things.
Yeah, and actually one question. I missed out. It kind of cut out. Where did you say Samir moved from?
He came here from Pennsylvania. He actually from West Philadelphia, as a matter of fact. So he came in. He was an inner city kid in Pennsylvania. You know, a young man that you know, family relocated. He had family here, you know, in the Marietta area. So mom found Hiram on a map just randomly. And he showed up, and we've been very pleased with him.
That's awesome. And, yeah, one of the few seniors. But let's talk about that Calhoun game. I saw in the AJC, in your interview, you had mentioned that you guys just wanted to keep close in the first half, and you felt like you'd have an opportunity to win. What was that like, though, just Calhoun jumping out to that 14 lead, being able to fight back, and then just to see the way the team was able to execute in the second half?
Well, you know, if you look at our record, we're 14 points away from being 6-1. You know, so you know, our kids knew if we could put it all together, that anything was possible. You know, we've had flashes where we've been good on defense, we've had flashes where we've been good on offense, but we just hadn't put it all together in one night. You know, so we really challenged the kids. We knew that Calhoun was coming off a huge victory. We knew it's tough to play them at their place. So we just told the boys when we came in before the game, I brought the kids in and I told them, listen, just one play at a time. Don't worry about the last one. Don't worry about the next one. Let's just focus on winning this rep. If we can win this rep, we can win the next one, and we can win the one after that. And when the kids went down 14-0, you know, they didn't flinch. You know, I felt that, you know, we needed to respond after being down 14-0. We had to go put some points on the board. And we drove down, we got inside the red zone, and we were able to kick a field goal. And it gave us some juice, you know. And then on the next series, the defense goes three and out, and they give us the ball back, and we're able to drive down and go 14-10. So at halftime, there was just a ton of confidence. You know, the coaches felt like, hey, there's not a lot of adjustments we need to make right here. Let's just get them back on the field. Let's warm up for the second half, and let's go play ball. So it was a really good time of just calm and peace. You know, we try to do a really good job in the summer of putting them in really stressful situations. Like we go up and we play Rome in the summer, and we try to challenge them and take them to different camps where they play really good 7A and 6A programs. You know, so they had gone against good programs before, and I just felt like all that was coming together for them in one game. Yeah,
and it was just a epic game. I saw that after the Jack Presley strip sack, and then that was, I think, Deontay Petaway had the fumble recovery touchdown. He also had a huge game outside of that, but then Calhoun's able to return the ensuing kick for a touchdown. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we go into we talked about at half that we got to stop them on the first drive. You know, we got to come out and make a play. Our kicker's pretty good, and he put it in the end zone, so they're starting on the 20. You know, they get into a kind of a 3rd and 12. We blitz Jace Presley off the edge, and he comes up with a strip sack from the blind side, and Deontay Petaway was able to recover it in the end zone. So, you know, we're really high, right? We're at the mountaintop. You know, the kids are excited. And then, you know, we kick off to them, and we kick it to the 1-yard line, and they're able to return it. You know, one of the tough parts about having a kid that kicks it in the end zone every time is that sometimes your kickoff team doesn't run as hard as they can because they know he's probably going to put it in the end zone. But when he misses, you better go cover. You know, we had a couple. I'll give credit to Calhoun. They were able to block it, and they were able to return it 99 yards for a score, which brought it down. It was 21-17 now, Calhoun in the third. But we still had confidence that we could go out and make plays.
Yep, and I mean you got some really solid athletes on your team outside just the backfield. I know you're talking about your offensive line, some of the bigger guys up there, Quentin Richard and Jamison Riggs.
Yeah, well, Jameson's one of the top prospects in the country. Outside of Alabama and Georgia, he's got offers from everyone else in the country. He's every bit of 6'5". He's 280 pounds. But the most impressive part about that young man is he's number 4 in his class overall. He's got a 4.0 GPA. He wants to study aerospace engineering. So you don't meet a lot of football players that want to go study aerospace. He's a great kid. He's our right tackle. And then Clinton's a left tackle for us. Clinton's going to be a 4-year starter for us. I started him as a freshman. He's got offers from places like Miami and Florida State, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Maryland. He's another kid that's really, really, really talented. Those guys do a great job paving the way for us. We were able to we rushed for almost 300 yards the other night, which is huge when you think about a team that's been as good as Calhoun has defensively. For us to go up there in their place and run the ball for almost 300 yards, just speaks so highly of the way that the offensive line was blocking, the wide receivers on the edge, the running backs, how they were blocking for each other. So I want to give those guys a ton of credit.
And I know you guys had a great game plan, but, did you expect to kind of just rely on the run the way you guys did, knowing how good Calhoun's defense is?
Well, I think in the beginning we were just to be honest with you, at the beginning we thought we were going to be able to throw the ball on them, and we just weren't having any success there. Whether it was an incompletion or a drop or whatnot. In the first 3 drives, we were 3 and out. We gained like 3 yards in the first 3 drives. We just kind of went back and said, let's do what we do. We've got this 2-headed monster in the backfield. Let's feed these guys and let's just wear on them with that offensive line that we have. Outside of the 2 big tackles, we've got a really good tight end as well. Walter Matthews, he's 6'7", he's 255 pounds. And as the game progresses, when those 3 guys lean on you, it wears people down. And, that was kind of our focus after that 3rd drive, that we were just going to run the football and, do what we've done in the past to have success.
Yep. Walter, your 6'7" guy, he's been really solid for you guys. He had the 2 touchdowns against Dalton. He's come up big a lot. But who else in that receiving core outside of just the ability for your running backs to go out there and make plays catching?
Well, Chase Tyler is our other wideout. I was actually just in here with a coach in the ACC. They just offered him a scholarship. He's 6'4". He starts both ways for us. He plays corner and he plays wide receiver for us. He was an all-region wideout for us. Another guy that's a young guy for us, and he's been elite for us. He's a kid that doesn't come off the field. He returns punts. He plays corner. He plays wideout. And it's a really tough matchup when you have Walter and Chase on the field for a defense, because you got to stop the run, so you got to bring the safeties in the box to stop Jamarian and Caden Hamilton. But then when you got those 2 big long guys on the edge, and you've got a senior quarterback who's got a ton of composure, I just think we're a tough matchup for a lot of people offensively.
Yeah, for sure. And looks like Chase had an interception in that Calhoun game. So, he's playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah, he never comes off the field. He's playing – I think when we count his reps at the end of the game, he's playing between 110 and about 115 plays a game, which is a ton of reps on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm. And so, I've also just been impressed with – obviously it's sometimes the stats can get kind of weighted if you break out like a big 80-yard run, but it looks like all season long you guys have been very efficient in terms of yards per carry, just with Caden and Watley. So, how impressive has that been for you guys, just to be that efficient offensively moving the ball?
Well, I think it always starts with the offensive line, right? When you have 2 Division I tackles, I think you've got a shot to be successful. And then you've got, some consider maybe the best tight end in the Southeast. So when you can put those guys behind them who are explosive and electric, anything's possible. We try not to rely on the big play, but the big play comes often with those two guys in the backfield. So, we kind of talked to them about that going into Friday, like, hey, we're not going to be able to big play these guys like we have other teams. Like, we're not going to be able to just pop off 40-yard runs and 50-yard runs. We're going to have to chip away at this thing. And the boys were ready. They were ready for the challenge. And, as the game went on, you could see their sideline getting a little more nervous, and our confidence was just building throughout the game. So I knew as the offensive line would lean on them and things like that we had an opportunity to be success.
Yeah, and you said you guys felt like you had turned the corner last year. Obviously, it's a young team, but you guys are having a great season. That was a huge win. I want to ask you about the Dalton game, though, to open the region. It looks like
Yep.
you guys started off strong and then just a tough, maybe even brutal second quarter for you guys.
Yep. Well, I think we're in a region that's got 3 city schools that have a ton of tradition and a ton of pride. When you look at the history of a program like Dalton or Calhoun or Cartersivlle, I mean, those kids have won and won and won, their whole lives. And for us, we're in a situation where we're still young and we're still building confidence, and we got up big, and I just feel like we took our foot off the gas. We ended up turning the ball over in the second quarter twice, once on special teams and once on offense, and really just allowed them to get back in the game. We were able to close in late to bring it within 7. But by then the damage was done. You've got a program like Dalton that's, like I said, has had a ton of success throughout their history and expects to win. And, you just can't make many mistakes against good ball clubs and expect to have success. I think when you look back on that tape, you can say, we just made too many mistakes to win it. But I thought it was a great motivator for us when we came in on Monday. We sat down and we showed the Dalton film to the kids, and just they understood how close they were from beating Dalton and having that win for our program. And, I think the kids knew that they could play with Calhoun because of that, because of the success they had. They remember when they got up, I think it was 24-7, going into the second quarter. They remember that, and they knew that they could do it. They just had to find a way to finish. And that's really, one of the things we kept talking about on the sidelines is just finish, in the second half against Calhoun. We got up, I think it was 21-17. At one point, Calhoun was up, and we just kept talking about finishing. And the kids really responded, and they believed in each other. And there's so much joy watching those kids play hard for each other. And a lot of teams talk about brotherhood, and we talk about brotherhood all the time, but you could see it as the season progressed that, these kids believe in each other and they care about each other, and they're willing to make sacrifices for each other. So I think that led to a lot of our success on Friday night.
Yep, and one of the guys we haven't mentioned is your junior kicker, an absolute weapon for you guys. He looks like
Yep.
he's having a huge impact.
Yep, Oliver Castaneda is his name, and
Okay.
he split duties last year with a senior who's now playing small college football up in Wisconsin. Really just handled our place kicking duties, but now this year he punts, and his first punt was almost 50 yards. He was able to flip the field on Calhoun. After we struggled a little bit on the first drive, and then he was able to hit a field goal, and then he's been great on kickoffs all year. I think he's somewhere around 75 or 80% on touchbacks. Just has got a huge leg. He's another one of those kids that we feel has got an opportunity to play at the next level. But he's a big weapon for us, and I can't be more happy with the success he's having. And his ceiling is unlimited. I think he's a kid that can play scholarship football and have a ton of success at the next level.
Yep. Is he rocking a mustache too?
He is. He's got a great mustache. He was born and raised in Alaska. There's not a lot of people that you can meet. So when his parents came to the United States, they opened a restaurant in Alaska, and he was born and raised up there, and then he kind of moved here at the end of elementary, middle school. I was walking into the middle school, and I was talking to the PE teachers, and I said, "Hey, you got any kids that should be coming out for football?" She goes, "Well, I got the best kicker you've ever seen." This is one of the PE teachers at the middle school. And I said, kickers? She's like, "Yeah, he's a soccer kid, but you can get him right." So I went and talked to him about football, and he was like, "Coach, I've never played football before. I'm a soccer kid." And I said, well, listen, man, if you're as good as the PE teacher says you are, I think this could be a good opportunity for you. So it's only his third year kicking, and he's done a great job for us, and we're really excited about that young man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw his picture on Max Preps. It's a cool looking mustache for sure. He's got some
Yeah,
swag.
it is.
And
It is.
yeah, he's been kicking a lot of PATs for you, and you mentioned I think 2 of 2 on the field goals this season and the boom
Yep.
and punt. So that is awesome. Another underclassman that's going to be there for you guys into the future. So, Coach, I really appreciate it. That's exciting. All the success you guys have had this year. The backfield's outstanding. I was really interested. I mean, you have a guy from Alaska, a quarterback that comes in from
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. I mean, it's
Yep.
a great team.
Yep. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. This is a big win for our program, and but we've got another challenge this week. The Cartersivlle program, in my opinion, is as good as they come, as elite as they are, and I think their coaching staff does a really good job. So we've got another test ahead of us, but the kids have a ton of confidence, and we're excited about the opportunity for Friday night.
Yeah, and just being from Naples and Fort Myers, I mean, anything from, what was that, 2 weeks ago that kind of hit close to home to you?
Yeah, my parents are still there, and my brother's still there, and it's really tough when you're far from home, and you know that people are in the eye of a storm, and my brother went without power. My brother lives in Fort Myers. He went without power for the better part of a week. No water, no power, no anything. And then, my parents are getting older, and them being by themselves. They didn't have a ton of damage or anything like that, and they're fine. But it was a difficult 24 hours. I don't think I've watched the news that much in my entire life. Just kind of following it, and being a Floridian, storms don't make you nervous. That you just prepare for them and you wish for the best. But when it got as big as it was, and it was coming right at them, I have to be honest with you. It was a tough couple days there. But everyone's doing fine now. I appreciate you asking, and thank you for having me on.
You bet. All right. Well, Coach, thank you. We'll have to get you back on later this year. Best of luck against Cartersville. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. Thank our sponsors, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show in the next 15 minutes, but I did want to talk about just all these crazy results from this past week. Thought an interesting one was on, I think it was Thursday night. Chamblee was able to beat Tucker 15-10. It's the first time Chamblee's beat Tucker since 1974. I think what's so interesting is we had Bob Swank on earlier. He's kind of been pivotal in building that program up, and one of the things he did was he elected to have a non-region schedule last year because they were just hurting in terms of the numbers of the roster, and they went 9-1, but obviously didn't make the playoffs because they didn't play in a region. And then for them this year to be off to this fantastic start and picking up a win over Tucker, I think that strategy has paid off, and there's a lot of excitement with Chamblee right now. So we'll be watching for them. And then some other exciting results. I thought Denmark had a huge win and made a huge statement against West Forsyth. That was a game they were down 3-0 at the half. They come back and get a 21-10 win. I said it on Friday. West Forsyth has Peyton Strako running the ball. He's been unstoppable pretty much all season. And so you got to think holding West Forsyth to just one touchdown, that Denmark defense is for real. And they're going to be trying to win their second straight region title. I saw Max Preps had the playoff projections. I think it calculated through the AI them as a number 3 seed. But their only loss this year was to Roswell week 1 where their quarterback got hurt. and they've been really good since. But we're going to go ahead and bring Najeh on right now. All right, Najeh, so you were at the big game this past week, East Coweta and Carrollton. What did you see out there? I thought Carrollton handled business, but also there were some missed opportunities for East Coweta.
Yeah, I agree with you. That game there, their defense I thought played exceptional in the first half. It was only an 11-7 game. They really stifled them throughout. They went down and scored thanks to Martravian Bowles' run. I thought they should have fed him more in that game. He was having a lot of success on the ground. Then at that point it was 7-3, and then they go on a long drive, 70-plus yard drive for Carrollton. Julian Lewis hits Bryce Hicks there, go up 11-7. But really the story of this game was the third quarter. They scored like 17 unanswered. Aided by their long drive early in the third. And then after that, they were able to get an interception. Kelvin Hill, guy I mentioned on my Twitter handle, balled out in that game, 2 interceptions. One was an acrobatic, very concentrated one, and then one was a near pick six. So when they were up 18-7 and he got that pick and put them like on the 2-yard line, at that point you've seen the momentum kind of shifted in that game. Carrollton just basically did not, wilt at all in that game, and then they just kind of went and, went down their throat with it. They went and scored. It was 25-7, and then before you know, they had another drive. It was 28-7, 21-point deficit for them, for East Coweta until they started getting things going. Then, Christian Langford hit a couple throws, Deleon Freeman on one, Brady Tillman later in the game. But every time they scored, it seemed like Carrollton always had an answer. They would always go on a long drive and kind of put the game away. So that's really kind of what happened in that one.
Yep. And one of the games we talked about last week that we're looking at was the South Atlanta at Mount Perrin. I mean, Mount Perrin's a good team. We talk about South Atlanta as a legit contender for the 2A title this year. That is a big statement. They made a 44-7 win on the road over Mount Perrin.
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised. I kind of figured it would handle business. I know Mount Perrin was 2-0 in the region before that game, but I mean, Kewan Brown, John Adams, TJ Summerall, I wasn't really worried about what South Atlanta was going to do. And I think this year they've been showing all year that they one of the creme de la teams. And, they're coming for that title and that region title. And I think it's – I'm not going to say smooth sailing, but I just think they're firing on all cylinders. And I think they continue to lean on some of their best players. And I think it's showing on Friday nights.
Yep. And then a result that I don't know if it was too surprising, but Walton just getting beat pretty bad by North Cobb. They didn't get on the board. It was 33-6. They didn't get on the board till the fourth quarter. Bodiford did play. I think he had close to 100 yards. But, I mean, North Cobb just shut them down. And to do that against an offense that had been producing like Walton had, I mean, you got to think North Cobb is back in that conversation as a team that is a tough matchup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I looked at some of the tape of that game. They were just flying off the ball defensively. I know Bodiford had nearly 100 yards, but it seemed like they weren't allowing really any easy runs. They challenged the receivers. And it was really surprising. Like you said, 6 points, very high-point offense. We've seen them just the week before put up 51 against North Paulding. Couldn't be stopped, even with the injury to Aiden Jackson. They still were balling with Wyatt Sunderman, Hunter Teal, and, Makari Bodiford and other weapons. So I think that was really surprising. And they just went in there, ran the football, depending on their defense. And, they really just put on a show, man, in my opinion. So definitely a big surprise. And it gets no easier for Walton. They have undefeated Kennesaw Mountain this week, I think, on the road. So it gets no easier for them. That's another region matchup for them. If they can get a win, they'll be feeling really good about themselves. But it gets no easier after North Cobb. And North Cobb just put us on notice that even though we don't have our star quarterback, we can still win these football games and go against some of the better teams in the state.
Yep, great effort by them, and that was on the road at Walton. So we'll see how Walton picks itself back up after that. You mentioned Kennesaw Mountain, 49-0 win over an undefeated Osborne team. That's just going to set up all these big region matchups coming in the next couple weeks. But let's talk a little bit about our game this week. I'm really interested in what Kell's been able to do this season. They had another big win this past week. Bryce Clavin at quarterback had 316 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's got, I think, 14 touchdowns on the season and then like 1,400 yards, and he's completing 72% of his passes. So, I mean, Bryce Clavin and this Kell team, they are cruising and have a chance to honestly have an undefeated regular season.
Yeah, I'm not all surprised. We've seen them earlier this year for the Corky Kell Classic when they played Cherokee Bluff, and they really balled in that one. Peyton Zachary had a phenomenal catch, Moss catch against that when they played him. Bryce Clavin in that game, I believe, had 3, maybe 4 touchdowns in that game. So he's been able to play well. And I can't wait to talk to their coach this week. Bobby May, I think his name is. And I was able to interview him after that game. But it just seemed like a team that's has a lot of cohesion. Look like they're very together, and I think this is a team. Obviously, I'm doing more research, so I have a better analysis coming up Wednesday, maybe Friday, on this game. But I'm excited to see what they can do if they continue up that momentum. And then for Cambridge, they're going to have to depend on Christian Isabor. That's a guy I think Craig talked to last week. The head coach, Craig Bennett. I'm curious to find more about their team, how they've been playing this year and how he's been performing, because he was really good last year, and I was able to see some of their games. So definitely won't be an easy game, but I think it'll be one of the better ones definitely this upcoming week.
Yep, Christian, he's a guy that he has been outstanding, but I think every previous season he's gotten hurt at some point and had to miss games, and so he's back healthy right now, knock on wood, and he's been outstanding. Their quarterback, Preston Clemon, he's a dual threat guy. I mean, in this last game against Centennial, he had 200 yards passing, another 73 on the ground, and then a guy that has been so good for Cambridge this year is their receiver, Will Taylor. And against Centennial, 2 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. And you see that from him pretty much every week. He doesn't get the ball a lot, but man, is he a home run hitter. And then, of course, Jack Marlowe, he's a returning starter that was so pivotal last year for Cambridge. I think it's going to be a really good matchup. Cambridge plays with a lot of pride. And then you look at their only losses this year. You have a 17-15 loss to Denmark. 2-point loss, and then a 42-35 loss to West Forsyth. So they are close to being an undefeated team. So I think it will be interesting to see how they do against Cal. But what else? I thought Douglas County, that was a good sign for them to get a 33-7 win over Paulding County. And what's so interesting is how Douglas County with Sire Hardaway was this spread passing attack, all these shifty receivers, and then James Johnson comes in at quarterback, and he rushes for 4 touchdowns last week. So Coach White and his guys, I think, have done what they need to do in the absence of Sire Hardaway, and that's a big win for them to be able to have a strong performance like that.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big win on the road. They're going to have to play, I think, South Paulding at the end of the season. I definitely want to get into them. I got a surprise for you too, Craig, of a player that's been really playing really well. Hasn't been talked about a lot. Is playing really Paulding when we get to that. But yeah, Douglas County getting that win. Obviously leaning on their really talented playmaker in James Johnson. He's really a receiver, but he stepped in and played quarterback last week. Had over 100 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. Really stepped up big, and you mentioned the running touchdowns as well. So they just trying to tread water. I did talk a little bit to Sire. I'm gonna try to see if I can talk to him a little bit on my podcast, hopefully this upcoming week, just to kind of get an update on his injury, how he's doing. I don't want to relay details right now until I know for sure, what it was and, possibly maybe when he can be back. But that's going to be something I'm keeping my eye on, for them. But their games do get easier. They got East Paulding and they got Noon in the next 2 weeks before that big showdown against South Paulding. So, I mean, if they can just tread water and continue to, pick up these victories, they have to like where they're going to look definitely in a few weeks.
Yep, and South Paulding had a big 61-6 win over New Manchester. And I think another guy for Douglas County, though, defensively, Shakai Woods. I mean, he has had a great season for them. And as good as their offense was, and as much as we like to talk about that, I mean, the Douglas County defense is for real. And holding Paulding County to 7 points, that's a great sign for them.
Yeah, we've seen it in our game when we televised it against Langston Hughes. First half, only 14-3, only 11-point lead. Defense kept just, keeping the offense in the game, hanging around. Deuce Alexander, 2 interceptions. Like you mentioned, Sakai Woods, Zachariah Keefe. So that was great for you to mention their defense because they play and perform really well as well.
And then I thought it was interesting, some of the other ones, Prince Avenue Christian, a Class A school beating Baylor, Tennessee. And that's such a good sign for Georgia. They're the number 1 team down there. Their passing attack's incredible. But I think the other team that had just a massive performance this last week was Cedartown. And you had a great breakdown last week against Heritage Catoosa, an undefeated team that was winning 35 points a game. I mean, for Cedartown to beat them like that, 42-0 at the half, I mean, Harlem Diamonds going over the middle. He's literally walking into the end zone like, how many more times am I going to do this? Like, we're absolutely dominating. So, I mean, that was a big statement for Cedartown. What interests you about just the way they are handling business in 4A this year?
They are for real. They are for real. They can beat you. Really, they're predominantly, I believe, rushing team, but I mean they can throw the rock as well. So for them to kind of go in there against an undefeated Heritage team that's performed well all year long and to kind of hit them in the mouth and it's kind of not put their foot on their throats, not let up at all. I think they said a lot to what Cedartown is doing this year, and they're not playing no games. And this is the team you got to watch. I think come playoff time. Obviously they want to win it all, and I think this is a team that's really dangerous in both the pass and the run. Obviously, they want to run it more than they pass it, but they can beat you passing too. And Harlem Diamond had a great game.
Absolutely. And then Troop obviously looks good too. And then, I mean, I was so shocked that Trinity Christian came back and won that game against Whitewater this last week. That was on the road. They were down, I think it was 23-7. Yeah, 23-7. And then Trinity Christian comes back in that one. I mean, how the heck did that happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, to be down that much, that's just a lot of resolve and resilience. And I think they really showed that Trinity Christian, even though, they were down big in that one. They just didn't stop. They kept going and going. And that's what you want to see from your team. It's a really thing that football comes down to a lot of times is effort. Sometimes you're going to face adversity always, but are you going to kind of well under pressure, or are you going to come back and perform? And I think that's really what Trinity Christian did in that one. And they said, okay, Whitewater, you got this big lead on us, and we're going to come back and we're going to perform, and we're going to get back in this game. And after they did that, they went on their run, and that was it.
Yep, and then last question before we go. How huge was that for North Atlanta to kind of stop that skid and get the win over Riverwood this weekend just to taste victory again?
Huge, very huge. They needed that region win. You don't want it to kind of go like last year, 4-0 start, ended up 4-4, and then 6-4, three-way tie, you don't get in. So big win for them, obviously, I think. And for them to kind of go in there and win that game will go a lot for their confidence. Trey Lennon, Randolph Smith, Hunter Davis, Zayden Benson. That's what they needed to do. And real quick before we wrap up, I just have a quick fire thing I want to do with you really quick, Craig, before we end the show today. I wanted to talk about South Paulding really quick. They got a big matchup coming up in a couple of weeks against Langston Hughes. They are on a bye this week, and then they play Alexander then after. But this stud running back, Jamarion Wilcox, hear this stat line: 27 carries, 271 yards, and 5 touchdowns against Paulding County. The guy has 1,348 yards and 17 touchdowns so far this year. He's averaging about 9.9 yards a carry. He's a 3-star according to 24/7 Sports. These stats are also before his game last week when they won 61-6, by the way. His offers from Kentucky, Appalachian State, Arkansas State, Charlotte, and Cincinnati. Seen some of his tape, has a great burst. He hits the hole and keeps his legs turning. That's what really stood out to me about that kid. And I can't wait to see him go against Langston Hughes in a couple of weeks. Joshua Horton, we've seen UNC commit. We've seen a couple of weeks ago, and Langston Hughes gets that very stout run defense for them. Can he have and follow that same kind of performance he's been having all season against that dynamic and good defense? And then I also wanted to mention some of the games of the week really quick, all week. I mean, man, this is really one of the best weeks, I think, in football for high school so far. I mean, Sandy Creek, Carver, Atlanta, 5-1 against 4-1. You got Cartersville versus Hiram. You just had Hiram coach on. Cartersville was coming off that, I believe, that loss a few weeks ago, close to Calhoun, 50-48, 3 overtime game. Then you got Walton, Kennesaw Mountain. That game's going to be very good. Lambert, West Forsyth. And then GPB has, I think, almost the game really of the week of the state, and that's going to be Mill Creek versus Buford. I mean, that matchup is just going to be something special, and I really can't wait to see it. And I kind of slept on matchup. It's going to be actually this week, Peachtree Ridge, North Gwinnett. Can't wait to see what happens in that one. North Gwinnett currently sits 3-0 in the region. Which you had on last week is 1-1. So they really need to go in there and get that win because right now they're the 4th currently in the region, and you got to get that top 4 spot, I think, in order to get in. So they need to go in there. They can get a win. That will go big in their confidence. If they lose, probably not liking where they're sitting at currently. But I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, those are all outstanding matchups. Really interested to see the Kennesaw Mountain Walton one, see how Walton responds, and then if Kennesaw Mountain, if they get a big win over Walton, I think people are going to have to really start taking notice. They've been outstanding this season, and I mean last year they had that hiccup loss to South Cobb kind of around this time, but this year it looks like they're only getting better. So Very interesting. But yeah, we will be back to cover all these on Wednesday and Friday. You guys can go to scoreatl.com, check out Najeh's work. He will be previewing some of these top games this week, and then also, as he said, breaking news just with these injury updates, and then his under-the-radar players that have had these big performances. So you want to check that out on his social media and at scoreatl.com. Also, go to scoreatl.com. Get tickets. Our Hall of Fame is coming up October 22nd at the College Football Hall of Fame, but it's the High School Football Hall of Fame. It's going to be a really fun event. You can get all the information on the right tab on the Score Atlanta website. All right, we'll be back Wednesday, though. Thanks for tuning in.